Hello, Green Chatters, and welcome to another episode here on the podcast. My name is David Ewusi-Mensah, and today I'm super excited about the conversation we are having today because we are talking to someone who strongly believes that we shouldn't call it waste when it's a significant resource. My guest today is Dr. Farshid Pahlevani, and he is an international expert in innovative solutions for waste challenges. His international research career spanning high-level research institutions in Japan, Singapore, and Australia, including considerable experience working closely with the industry to improve existing processes to achieve better environmental outcome and greater cost efficiencies. Dr. Farshid has 6 international patents, more than 100 scientific peer-reviewed articles published worldwide, and attracted millions of dollars in research funding. And in today's conversation, we talked about interesting things like what the industry should consider in choosing a particular material, what the recycling industry is missing and why is it failing at this point, and what has really caused the industry to sort of focus on producing durable products and materials. Is that a consumer issue or a production issue? From the industrial point of view, how could we try our best to improve our approach towards the SDGs? And what does it even mean to turn waste into profit? This and more in today's conversation that I just cannot wait to share with you. So we'll be diving into the conversation shortly, but we just want you to know that Green Living Chat has been nominated at the Association of African Podcasters and Voice Actors Award. And so you can dive into the show notes for links and procedure to just cast your vote, and we'll be very happy to share this award with you. Voting has already started and will be ending on July 20th, 2022. So dive into the show notes and show your support, dear Green Chatters. Now, who else is excited about this episode? Let's dive into this conversation. See you on the other side. This is the Green Living Chat podcast. Here, we define sustainability, educate, and discuss feasible solutions to achieve a regenerative ecosystem. In a world where sustainability has become a cliche and misused in practice, we bring you inspiring stories from the industry, research and development, and all stakeholders in between. And together, we can promote the sustainability agenda across the globe. This podcast is proudly produced and sponsored by our team at Eco Amit Solutions in Ghana. We come your way with new episodes this and every Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT. So dear Green Chatters, let's get started. Okay, Dr. Farshid, thank you so much for joining me today on the Green Living Chats podcast. It's exciting, and you have no idea how happy I am to finally meet you. Really, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, David, for inviting me to your podcast. And it is also a great privilege for me to come to your podcast, talk to you, and also talk to your audience. I'm following your podcast, so I like the way that you are approaching this area. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you have no idea how it is to hear this coming from you, because really I drive a lot of inspirations from you. I'm learning from a distance. Your post on LinkedIn, like it just pierces your heart. It's short messages, but you can learn a lot from it. And it's like, what are you doing to, help the environment? What contributions are you making today? It's really exciting. So really, congratulations on everything that you're doing. And I mean, this is long ago, but it's not too long. In 2020, you were listed as part of Australia's most innovative engineers. Wow. Yeah. Congratulations on that. I mean, this is not the only award that you've won. There are quite a lot of them, but really, congratulations on that. Would you like to highlight a little bit what went into this?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. So that was basically a surprise for me also, but it was a good achievement, as you mentioned, because I always drive the fact that we as an engineer, we shouldn't just make something or develop something as we like to do, but we should look at the problem and then we see how we can tackle that problem
Yeah.
while solving other issue. For example, while creating the solution which is aligned with the environment, aligned with the human, and aligned with everything on our society. So for that particular one, the project was creating the fertilizer from the food waste and agricultural waste for agriculture. Because nowadays, the chemical fertilizer, the price is going very high.
Mm-hmm.
Only a few countries in the world is actually has the most of the production for fertilizers.
Exactly.
So countries like Australia, the soil is degrading a lot, and that's why they put more and more fertilizer. And this fertilizer is actually killing the soil because all the microorganism, all the things that is in the soil, and those is actually creating the soil alive. Those basically creating the food for plants to grow, creating the food for other crops to grow.
Yeah.
These chemicals is killing them. But at the same time, there is a lot of agricultural waste. After the harvest, for example, they remove one part which is eatable. The other part is actually go to the waste. So there is also a huge cost for the farmers and also a huge cost to the environment because all these crops is either burned or either leave to be degraded or it's just put it into the landfill. So then that particular solution was how we can link these two together. We have the waste in the farms that they can use it themselves, create fertilizer for their farm instead of importing the chemical fertilizer with the very high cost. So that was the whole about that solution.
Wow.
And I'm so happy that it was recognized and because of
Yes.
that, I got that award.
Sounds very exciting, really. I mean, guys, you may have heard something about Dr. Farshid and the introduction. We are in for a treat today because there are a lot of things that Doctor is gonna, introduce to us that is gonna really equip you. This is just the beginning. Doc, we want to dive into your background a little bit about something you haven't told everyone about yourself, things people don't know that maybe might be your hobby. How was your childhood experience and how would you like to link it to who you are right now?
So I grew up in a very small city in Iran. Two things was always motivate me. One of them was going for hiking and in mountains. And another thing was creating something for myself. For example, the toys, I destroy them, I create that. And these two was always fascinating me. But always on the weekend, one of my most motivation and the thing was that on the weekend either we go for hiking or my grandparents has the farms and they are actually doing the agriculture. So or we go there and I go to the farms, I helping them, I work with the land. So that was my always during the week. I always looking for the weekend to go to the farms and do those kind of things. And another aspect was that, for example, I like to create something. At that time, when I was child, it wasn't. It was long ago. So
Yeah.
and at that time we didn't have those kind of the toys that actually you can control it and it go. For example, we have just the plastic toys or cars or something. And I remember when I was, I think, 10 or 11, I don't know exactly the time, but I bought one of those plastic cars and also I bought the batteries and some small motors and things. And I created the car for myself, which is actually it has a switch that you can turn on the switch, it go forward, reverse the switch, it come backward. So it was basically, I just like to play with these things. And I think these two is actually forming who I am now, because
Wow.
now I'm fascinated with nature. I'm fascinated with the going out, going to the jungles, going to the nature, going to the farms. And at the same time, I always looking for something that we can create for our better future, not just creating some things for for our comfort, but to something that create comfort for us, but at the same time doesn't harm environment. Because I believe that we are part of this environment, we are part of this planet. So if we harm the planet, we are actually harming ourselves.
Ourselves, yeah. Wow, that's so nicely put. I have interviewed a lot of people, talking to them and listening to their stories of their background and how they got into what they're doing right now. It makes me think about parenting right now. It makes me think about schooling right now. What are some of the things that we are doing right now that makes it so different that people of old look back into their lives and they're like, wow, this generation, are they really serious? Are there things that you are doing maybe in your own life that you sort of, trying to impact the young generation that are coming that could sort of equip them for the future? I mean, their future careers, like into music or engineering or something. Are there some things like that that you think of or maybe doing, even in your family?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that we do a lot these days is the outreach. So there is a lot of, for example, we go to the high schools or the schools and talk about what we are doing
Yes.
for example, bringing the engineering and environment together and to motivate them and give them understanding of what's happening right now. Because I think one of the areas that younger generation, I think we need to motivate them toward that is to give them the hope
Yeah.
and give them that, okay, for example, hear a lot of news about the environment, about the global warming, about everything. But at the same time, they need to recognize that we as an individual can change that. If each one of us do a small step, then eventually collectively it's become a big thing and we can change that. And I think that's a good message that we give, and we try to give that to the children or to the, for example, the high school student or others, that with these simple things that you can do right now at your home, you can create the change.
Yeah, wow, that's very inspiring. We've already heard a lot about you. We know what you do right now. What inspires you, Dr. Farshid? I mean, people say their grandparents, people talk about their parents, people talk about friends, maybe some life experiences. What really triggered what you're doing right now? Do you remember or do you have any memory of anything significant like this?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, it's always because I grew up in my grandparents had the farm and the nature and going to that. That was always my motivation.
Yeah.
And I like to do something like that. But wasn't, I wasn't doing that seriously, or I didn't recognize that till I basically learned some lessons. The person that basically has the most influence on me was Dr. Nargis.
Shout outs
So
to Dr. Najid.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Her way of teaching was different because she has the background in the science, and she's actually a material scientist, and
Mm.
she's a well-known material scientist in the scientist area. But at the same time, she connects this to the wisdom and the way that we need to think about the things, the way that we can behave. And that's linked with me a lot because she basically connects these two, the modern science, ancient wisdom, bring together and create that.
Wow.
And when I came across that her teaching, and I know her personally, and I'm fascinated with the way that she's teaching. So it's actually changed the way that I behave, and it changed the way that I go for what I always love. And I just want to mention to all your listeners, if they like, she recently published a book called Grow Your Mind, Grow Your Life. And that book is actually concentrated all her teaching in one
Wow.
book in a very simple language. And I recommend everybody to, if look at that, and if they like it, just read that book. But I always had these things in me myself, that I like nature. I like to create a solution for the nature. I like to motivate people to do something for our nature and environment. But I wasn't doing it seriously till
Wow.
she helped me to go for that.
Wow, I love that. We're definitely going to put links to this book and her teachings in the show notes. Definitely people need to look out for it. Actually, I checked it out before this conversation. I already checked her website. It's amazing. I actually didn't even know that I've been following her on LinkedIn, and I didn't know it was this particular lady you were talking about. I'm definitely going to check it out. So to the young people out there, you've heard things about inspirations, really. We are so used to checking YouTube, watching unnecessary videos. Let's dig out into our lives to look for really good things that can inspire our future. Now let's dive into the industry. We've talked a little bit about your background and what you do, but I know as a research scientist, I really want to have this idea. Can you please lay a baseline for us today on this discussion about the importance of a material choice for a product? What really should the industry think about, or what haven't they thought about yet when it comes to material choice?
I think when you come to the material choice, we have to think about a few items. The first item, which everybody at this stage thinking, is the functionality of that material. For example, if you want to create a product, what function that material need to have? For example, durability and the appearance, performance, and everything. So that is given. So everybody need to think about that. And another aspect I think everybody nowadays need to think about that is how that material behave at the end of their life. For example, any product that we are actually creating, there is a lifetime for that. And unfortunately, these days, the products is actually produced to not last long. Then the customer is actually come and buy the new one. So that's the motivation for the industry these days. Previous generation, or maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was a motto that the product should last long. And then industry designed a product, create a product for that. But nowadays, the motto is that the product shouldn't last long. Then the customer come back for the next one. So
Wow.
then we have to understand what that particular material behave at the end of the life. Can we separate them and recycle them? Can we, for example, do something to that? Or they are easily degradable and they can, for example, go to the landfill or other aspect. So that's another thing. The third one that I think every industry need to think about their material is how much energy or in particular, how much carbon embodied in that particular material. For example, if you want to have the material A, which perform for you, so then they have to think this material A can come from local industry, or it need to come, for example, from the other side of the world, or it can come from the neighboring country. So, and each of these is actually create the embodied carbon into that. So I think that that's another important part that every industry need to think about it. I know the cost is the important factor, and that's why nowadays, for example, it's coming from another countries or very long distance because of the cost. But at the same time, if you think holistically, that if the material come, for example, from a small factory in the region, then if we supply that, or for example, if we help that, in the long run, the cost will be less than the immediate. But normally the industry is just thinking about, for example, next 2 or 3 years, and then or next 1 year sometimes, and then they choose the material for that.
Exactly. Wow. That's interesting. I really hope that, well, we all know that this is not something that the industry is doing right now. And of course, that's why this conversation really needs to come here. If these things do not happen at the industrial level or maybe at the planning level, we all know the consequences of this. And that's why we are seeing massive amount of waste generated all over products, packaging, and everything. But then we all know that one of the strategies that was adapted by so many people, I mean, came early, especially when plastic material was also introduced into the market, was recycling. Actually, before this interview, I just Googled, I don't know why, but I just Googled the problem with recycling. And I saw so many articles pop up, and I was wondering, I was looking for a more credible platform that I could check it out. There was this information which is quite credible. It says 3 reasons recycling is failing? And number one, I mean, all the things that he mentioned is actually not something that I was expecting. And I would like to know your thoughts on this. It says one, under investment, second, under participation, and then third, unchanging laws. So there is nothing scientific when it comes to, and nothing related to the material choice, nothing related to, I mean, the conversation that we've had so far. In your opinion, what do you think about the recycling industry and why do you think it's failing?
I agree with those three items. But I think one of the areas that it's basically the people missing is that the profitability of the process. If a waste recycling process is actually a profitable industry, then everybody go for that. So all the industries, all the investments, they go invest in that process to earn money. So now, for example, if you consider any industry, for example, electric car, why electric car is now booming? Because it's a profitable process, because they can create a car, it can sell. And when it's a profitable process, the people put the money in, they do it. And at the same time, you and me, because of the environment, we care for environment, for example, we go for that. So, but that's a key piece. If the process is not profitable,
Mhm.
and if they need to put money in, then either government should put money in,
Yeah.
or, for example, some industries, because government put for them a legislation, and it's not sustainable, it's not lasting long. So if a process is profitable, then the people put the money in, they create the process. And at the same time, when you have that industry of the recycling, then it's actually pulling the waste toward that. So you don't need to push the waste for recycling. They are actually have the demand for the waste. Then it create the, for example, separation industry to separate the waste, for example, separate plastic from organic waste. And when there is an economic incentive for that, then they will, for example, create advertise to the customer that, okay, you separate this waste at household to be easier. And we as a customer, we as a, for example, ordinary people, we see that when we put the time and effort to separate our waste and maybe, for example, wash our bottle and everything, then we see that is actually recycling. So we get motivated and we actually doing that happily. So I think that will create the whole loop of the process. And that's, I think, is missing nowadays. Because nowadays, either the recycling is need a massive investment of the money with the big factories that actually create that. And normally when they do that, so then they have to, because they have to put money in, then there is a lot of time for return on investment, and there is not so much motivation to go for that area.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I also think that, I mean, as you explained from the beginning, the material choices are also very important in this because there are some products that are made that are totally just not recyclable. Actually, the processes that they use to make those materials together are not sort of reversible. So even if they are reversible, it goes back to your point that the motivation to even go through that whole process and invest a lot to reverse that process is very cost intensive. So people do not actually go into it. I mean, I would like us to continue this conversation because I think we are diving more into sustainability. And I would like to ask you this question. You made mention about how products were made at first and the focus that came with it, that they wanted to make products that could last for a very long time. But now, I don't know what it is. I would actually like to get your thoughts on it. Why has it changed now? And I mean, I just want to hear your thoughts on that even before we get on this. Why do you think it has changed now? Because I thought that now population is growing that much, and we should rather create products that will last long for the population. And so why has the narrative changed for us now to make products that are, they don't last?
So I think there are different aspects to that. One of them is actually the change in the customer behavior. For example, we like to, for example, have a new product every time because it's
Yes.
actually give us the happiness. For example, if you have a new mobile phone, it's actually make us happy. And after 1 year or 2 years, we get bored and we need the new one. So we as a customer wants more new product and new things. And at the same
Wow.
time, the businesses and industries, for them, is actually because the economic incentive is that if they create a new product and new model and sell it, so they can create more money. So both of these is actually hands in hand to create that. For example, now you know that every year everybody is expecting a new model of the mobile phone is coming. So, for example, and all these big players after, for example, mobile phone, every year they are introducing new thing. And now even is reducing to every year 2 times per year. One time, for example, a major shift, the second time is the minor shift in the product and development. And that is actually shorten the time. And when everybody is going to change their mobile phone, for example, with this mindset, every 2 or 3 years max. So then the industry, they're thinking that, okay, if they put, for example, more time and effort and money
Exactly.
to create a longer lasting phone or any product, there is no value to that because the customer anyway is going to change it. So I think that's the
Wow.
change the whole industry and the waste issue.
Hi there. Just a quick one. If you find our conversations worth listening, why don't you share them with your friends and connections? Please help us reach more and new listeners by leaving a review, commenting, or rating us on any platform where you get your podcast. We can't wait to hear your thoughts and ideas, so share them with us via a social media platform or email. Find more details in the show notes. Now let's get back into today's conversation. Yeah, that's a very interesting way to look at it because I think that we have been blaming the industry for long and we consumers have a very big role to play. I was listening to someone recently talking about the difference between animals are going about their daily lives and humans. Humans are just always finding new ways to live. And now we've drifted away so far from nature that the animals are still sticking to it. And when they come out, we even take them from that place to the zoos and to downtown and to the cities. They feel very uncomfortable. They want to go back into the forest. But then we have found continuous ways. And now, like even in our conversation right now, I see so many things unfolding, and it's because of the trends have changed, right? But I want to get your thoughts on this now, even as we're talking about sustainability and the circular economy and all that. We have this big dream of the sustainable development goals, and I think there are so many things that contribute to it. Waste management, it affects human life and all that. We've talked about materials choice. We've talked about the recycling industry and all that. From the point of view of an engineer and as a research scientist, do you think that where we are approaching is sustainable, or what do you think that are some of the loopholes in our circular economy and sustainable development goals approach right now?
I can talk about the engineering side and manufacturing side of it because I know that there is a lot of work also happening in the policy and changing the policies and things, which is very good. And because I'm not expert in that area, so I cannot comment on that.
Yeah.
But in the manufacturing side of it, I think that, as I mentioned, there is a lack of innovation in there. So there is, for example, we know that the plastic is recycling. We know that, for example, the plastic they need to be single stream plastic, clean plastic, and this is the process of recycling. That's known for a lot of years now, but we are sticking to that. We are not opening up our view that, okay, if we are, for example, want to recycle that, how we can change that, how we can create the way that in the maybe a smaller scale, and maybe in the local community, we can do those recycling. Or, for example, at the end, when we recycle, there is always some remaining part, which is the commingled, contaminated kind of the materials.
Yeah.
So why we are not looking at that? Why we think that, okay, that's not recyclable, there is no use to that, send it to the landfill. So, but I think we can change that. And by bringing the innovation, by bringing a new ways into that. But I can say that it is actually a start to changing. Nowadays, a lot of startups is coming up for this area. A lot of people is looking at the investment in that. So I'm very positive with that. So hopefully in next few years, we actually can change that a lot, because I can see a lot of startups is start to activating in these area and these domains.
Wow. It's really exciting that your first point was on innovations. Your details and how to get to you is going to be in the show notes. And I really recommend everyone to just dive into your LinkedIn profile and other social media platforms just to see the things and the work that you're doing. On your LinkedIn profile, it says that you help manufacturing companies to create solutions from waste products and show them how to, turn waste into profits. And this is boldly written on your product. And what does that mean? At least someone is bringing innovative solutions. Tell us more about this.
The way that I always look at the waste is looking at it as a material, not as a whole product. For example, if you drink your coffee today in a single-use coffee cups, so we know that single-use coffee cups, for example, it has some fibrous material, it has some papers, it has the polymer lining. So when I look at that, I don't look at it as a single-use coffee cup. I look at this as a polymer and, for example, fibrous material.
Exactly.
And then we can, if we look at the waste as that, then we can find a solution how we can, for example, create a new material as it is. Because when you go to the material perspective, it's actually high quality material. But if you look at it as a product, for its application, yeah, it's reached to the end of life. That coffee cups, the application was holding the coffee. When we drink the coffee, it's reached to the end of the life. So there is no usage of that. So you cannot, for example, for the hygiene, you cannot wash it and reuse it. You cannot, for example, do anything of that. So in that way of thinking, is reached to the end of the life. There is no way to recycle them, because nowadays they cannot recycle it, because the fibers and polymers, they are two different material. You cannot recycle the paper, you cannot recycle the polymer. But if you look at it as a material aspect, that this is the paper-based fibrous material and polymer, then you can create a solution for that. You can find a solution for that. So that's the best way. So that's why I always mention that waste is profit, because that material itself, for example, coffee cups, is a free material. They are happy to give to manufacturing free, or even pay them to take it. And that material is high quality material. So you can, if you know the way, or if you know the solution for that, you can turn to a product and you can sell the product. So basically you get paid to take the input material.
Exactly.
And you can produce the product and sell it. So that's why we call it as a profit, because it's a lot of way that you can gain money in this approach.
Wow, I really love how you put it. I mean, seeing the waste as material, like raw material that you can use it to start something else. There's a lot of human behavioral, factor attached to waste and, all these things that we've even been talking about. And if we really need to make a very big change in the industry, there's a lot of education and discussions, conversations that need to go on. But when I look at different stakeholders who are in the supply chain of any product, we have to approach them with a different message, right? We have the governments, the local governments, we have the industries, consumers, we have even the researchers, we have academia and all that. I don't know, you can pick these at random. What kind of recommendations will you give to these guys now that we are moving towards seeing waste as a material? What should we do? Because probably an industry doesn't know what to do. Like, I mean, you're telling him that he should see them as materials. Are there available technologies that could help? What kind of, people should he look out for to sort of sell his materials to them, his waste to them as materials? Are there people also looking out for these materials to use? Should the government also look at more policies, or I don't know, something? What kind of recommendations will you give to, random stakeholders that you think could help us in this approach?
Yeah. So I can say that, yeah, the government definitely, they need to put the policies and things, because without the policies and without the government push,
Yeah.
it doesn't be massive change. And for example, one or two industries, they start to change, but not in the big scale. So that's the given. And as I mentioned, I don't have so much expertise in that area, so I don't
Yeah. Let's leave it to
go
them.
deep in that. Yeah. But for the area that, for example, nowadays there is, yeah, a lot of new things is coming. For example, in the textile industry, I know a few startups that actually creating the platform that those people that they have the waste, they can list their waste in that. For example, these are the textile that they have as a waste, and the people that they need that, and or they can use that as an input, they can go to those platforms and use this material. So this type of the platform is coming. So there is a lot of this which can actually link those sellers to buyers, and those that they have the waste and those that they can use the waste. And there is also a lot of new solutions or innovative solutions already exist, that how you can use this to that. So that's, I think, if anybody is looking or any company is looking for that, there are existing things. Of course, the number need to be increased, and it's and if the demand increasing, definitely the numbers also will be increasing. But sometimes there is no specific solution for their waste. And that's the time that they have to reach, for example, the scientists or researchers that are actually working in there, and they can develop that. Because I know that in the universities, in the researchers, there are a lot of work is doing in this area. And of course, some of them is in the lab scale, some of them in the bigger. But if the industry comes and they like that, then they can speed up the process of developing them. They can speed up the process of, yeah, from lab scale to the pilot scale and to the full production.
That's very true. Obviously, what you're saying means that research also plays a very important role in this. But even on this podcast, we have been having conversations with different industries, and we realize that they all sort of go back and lean on research. But we also realize there's a very big gap between research, policymakers, and then the industry. And even for researchers, I mean, look at the recent IPCC report, right? I was having a conversation with a friend. Of course, there is this summarized part, but boy, it's 3,000 pages, right? And some of the terms, like a young entrepreneur doesn't have time to read all these kind of things. There is a summary, but still, people cannot relate to these kind of things. So how can we sort of bridge the gap between research, which plays a very important role, and policymakers, and then the industry? How do we bridge this gap?
Every single one of these, they have to play a role. Yeah, I know that as a scientist, I know also that normally we cannot explain what we are doing in a simple language. And that's the issue. And that's why as you mentioned, there is a big gap even between the universities and industry. So sometimes the industry looking for the solution which already exists in the university, and normally they are in the same city. And because they cannot communicate, because the researchers, they cannot communicate these solutions to them, they are not coming for those solutions. So I think that's a huge issue. But at the same time, I think something that what you are doing now, for example, your podcast, your thing is to bringing this in the simple language and translating it to the people. So I think that you, with your podcast, is doing a critical role here, because you are bridging these gaps, and this is the important part. And people like you is actually need to do a lot of these kind of things and bringing all this information. And when, for example, young entrepreneur or the industry people listening to your podcast, so they actually learn that, oh, there is a
There
solution
is a
for this.
solution.
Yeah, and even the younger generation, when they listen to your podcast, they say, "Wow, there is something is happening." So then they are more motivated to go to this area. They are motivated to do something for that.
Yeah, I love how you put it. And I think that maybe we should even create a new job opportunity like research explainers or
Yeah.
interpreters. And these people will
Yeah.
learn to, sort of bridge the gap because of course
Oh.
there is really a lot of work to do in that area. Anyways, I love the conversation that we've had so far. We've talked about the issues, we've talked about your approach towards this and the solution that you are in the industry, of course. And definitely I think that people might be interested how to get involved with you. I mean, Dr. Farshid has a lot of publications already. I've gone through some of them. Some of them are quite a little bit difficult to understand. I need to I need to do a reflection on it to sort of get the idea behind it. But I think, of course, people will be interested to know some of your upcoming projects and how they can sort of collaborate with you. Do you do consulting? Do you do sort of, can people just pick up a phone and call you and ask you questions and probably get their problem solved?
Yeah, so for example, I think the best approach, as you mentioned, is through the LinkedIn, or even if they search my name, they can find my email address and phone numbers. And because we do a lot of research and already a lot of work in this area. So anybody they want to reach out either through LinkedIn, messaging me, emailing me, or for example, calling me, they can do. If we already have the solution, we can offer that to them. Or as you mentioned, we have a lot of work and papers and things we can communicate that with them. But if we don't have the solution, either if we have the capability, we can mention that, okay, we can create solution for them, or we can link them to those people that already they have the solution. Because especially, for example, in Australia, one thing that we are now doing is to see what other universities or other researchers is doing in this area, and creating a kind of the knowledge bank. And then if, for example, they like to know, industry people or anybody, they want to understand, okay, who is doing in this area, or what is the solution for that, then we can link them, for example, and say, okay, go and talk to this person. They may have a solution for that.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And of course, all your details are going to be in the show notes. I'm going to say that over and over. Anyone should just dive into it and then get in touch with you. Well, I want to ask you this question. Maybe it could be a little bit controversial, but let's go ahead with it. So you are in this industry, and I'm sure that you have seen lots of loopholes in this industry. Is there something that you have always wanted to say but have never gotten the chance to say? Maybe a problem that you're like, I really want to address this problem, but you have really not gotten the chance to say. Would you like to share something like that with us?
Not quite, because I always very upfront and mention everything. But I think one thing that everybody need to be cautious about that is that from every aspect nowadays, because the environment is the important issue for us as a customer. So the industries, they normally, there is a lot of greenwashing as well happening. There is a lot of good work is happening, but there is a lot of greenwashing. For example, I saw a few days back in the supermarket, I saw a product that mentioned that, for example, made from recycled product or recycled plastic. Then I look back at that and it's mentioned 20% of this material is from recycled. So I think that doesn't make sense. Or, for example, they put that this is come from, for example, plant-based plastic. And then when you look at the back, it's just 20% of it is plant-based, not everything. So I think these are the things that we as a customer, we can push for it. Because if we can choose that, for example, between these two, which one we choose, then we have to choose consciously.
Yeah.
Because normally when they put that plant-based, then the price is higher than normal one. But only 20% of it is plant-based. There is no much difference from recyclability point of view, because there is this polymer or 100% polymer is the same. Yeah, a little bit maybe the carbon emission is less, but doesn't make huge change. So I think that that's one thing that we need to look at it, and we as a people, we as a customer can change that. We can
Yeah.
derive this, because two aspects: one, by choosing which product we are buying, we can change that, but at the same time we can have a say to our, for example, or councillors or political representative, or for example the people that is actually elected from our region. We can ask them what we want, because they are the people that creating the policies, they are the people that
Exactly.
creating the laws. So if we as the people that electing them, we demand for them, so they will listen, because they need our vote, so they
Yes.
will listen to us. So I think that that's the important part, and we need to mention this, we need to demand this from them. If they see the demand, then there will be change for that.
Wow. Thank you so, so much for bringing this issue up. I think it's very important. It's a very good way to end this interesting conversation that we've had. But I want to hit on it again that, I mean, people that are listening should just know that we really have lots of, power, let's say, for lack of a better word, to tell the industries and send our messages to them. And I think that it's also very important that individually we also invest a little bit into research, because this greenwashing thing is becoming an issue. Even on our podcast website, the first line that you see is sustainability has become a household name now that everyone is just using for their own benefits. And so an industry wants their products to be sold. So they just, put things that has been internationally recognized and just use them for their own benefits. And that's really, it's very sad, but I think we as consumers can send the message out to them. We have seen that your packages are not real as you say them. We have seen that this is not correct, and this is what we demand from you, so please change it. But unfortunately, there's also another side of this whole issue, that consumers are, asking the industry to do certain things that they are compelled to do, which might not necessarily be the sustainable approach. So there has to be, a balance in there. So, all right. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I just have my star question that I'm going to ask you. This is a weird question to ask you because it's something that you do every day. But of course, let me just ask you, since you're here, what does sustainability mean to you, and what is your approach towards it?
Yeah, the sustainability for me, I think I touched upon it at the beginning, that is that we are part of this planet. So this planet is actually our home. So if we damaging the planet, we are actually damaging ourselves. If we are destroying this planet, we are destroying ourselves. So for me, sustainability means be in harmony with the environment, be in harmony with planet. Of course, be comfortable, live well and happy. But think about that. For example, you are living in your own home. If you are in your own home, if you get cold, you don't go and smash your table and burn it there to get warm, because you know that if you, for example, put fire on your table, you don't have your table later. So that's the approach we have to think about our planet. So I think if we think about this sustainability and things in this way, then we will change our behavior, and then we can create the lasting change.
Wow. I love the approach that you took this. People like you just encourage us to just do more. And really, if no one has said this today, thank you so much for what you do. We really appreciate the knowledge that you have shared and insights that you have shared from your years of experience. And really, I really appreciate you taking this time out of your busy schedule to be on the podcast. And thank you so much for coming today.
No, thank you very much for having me. So I enjoyed the conversation with you, and it was fun. So hopefully your listeners also enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Definitely. And I hope that, I mean, next time we're going to have a call, probably again to dive into other matters, probably maybe updates on this. Really, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey there. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this episode. Now there is a call to action. So why don't you engage with our community of green charters on our social media platforms? Find more details and links in the show notes. Get involved with the podcast by emailing us at glcpodcast@echoamitsolutions.com or DM via our social media platforms. We cannot do the same things expecting different results. The urgency of climate change demands actions now and not in 2050. So, dear Green Chatters, see you on the next episode, and remember, live green.